Our next speaker is Annie Milli, and she runs Live Baltimore, a nationally recognized residential marketing organization. Let me give you a little background. Families love city life, and our next speaker, Annie, helps families find their way to stay in Baltimore by locating perfect neighborhoods for growing families, creating social connections for parents and kids in Baltimore. Please join me in welcoming to the stage Annie Milli.
Well, good afternoon. Hi. Welcome to Baltimore. Thank you so much for visiting and exploring our city. I've seen some of you around town already, and I trust that you're having a great time. Baltimore, like many cities in the United States, and likely like many of those in the room today, has long struggled with population loss. Our peak population of 950,000 residents in 1950 was 620,000 at the 2010 census. Now, this decline in population didn't happen overnight, and the reasons for it certainly aren't unique. But what is unique, perhaps, is how Baltimore has worked to address the issue. Live Baltimore was founded in 1997, and as you can see here, it was the end of the decade with the second highest rate of population loss in our city's history. As Kirby said, we are the city's residential marketing organization, which in and of itself is unique. Fewer than 10 cities in the United States have anything that resembles Live Baltimore. Essentially, we are responsible for marketing the city to residents and residents exclusively. I came to Live Baltimore in 2013 at what turned out to be a critical transition point in our organization's history and in our direction. And there were a couple reasons for this. First, we had just celebrated our 15th year of operation, and so we were evaluating our effectiveness over time. Second, our then mayor had just announced an initiative to grow our city by 10,000 families in the next 10 years. Now, as cities do, our city convened a work group to look at this goal, and that work group was called Grow Baltimore, and I became a part of it. And it was this work group that turned out to change the way that I think about marketing cities completely. The biggest takeaway from this work group can be summed up with this image. With all of the success that our city had had in attracting young professionals, empty nesters, people like Hilton, the so-called creative class, especially to our downtown, we were still trying to fill a bucket with a hole in the bottom. And there was one particular group that was flowing out of these holes more quickly than any other. These guys right here, families with children. Through further research on the Grow Baltimore Committee, we were able to quantify this loss more precisely. It turned out that 4,000 families with a child under the age of 5 were leaving Baltimore City every year. And since we know that children under 5 can't move out by themselves, they take their parents with them, we knew that this really meant that we were losing at least 8,000 residents, likely more. And it was at this time that I became responsible for answering this question: how can we retain more families with children in our city? The answer became a program called Way to Stay, which has been active since 2015, which I'll talk about today. In essence, I'm going to try to distill 6 years of my career into about 9 minutes, actually 7:57, by helping you to market your city to residents with children using 3 words. These words come from extensive research, and lucky for you, I've alliterated them, so they're easy to remember. They are schools, space, and support. When we spoke to families who had decided to both leave and stay in our city, it was no surprise that schools were top of mind. And so here's what I can share with you about schools. Stop being afraid to talk about them. If there's one thing that you leave here with today, I hope it's this. Schools do not have to be the third rail in urban marketing. And in fact, they can't be, especially if we want to retain families with children. Once we stopped being afraid to talk about schools, it was as if an entirely new city opened itself up to us. Suddenly, everywhere I went, I was meeting these amazing people who had these incredible stories. And the more stories I heard, the more I came to believe that it was our duty to tell them. Today, we invest nearly a third of our total advertising budget in marketing our city's public schools. And here is just one ad from that campaign.
Bolton Hill and Reservoir Hill, they have all of those things that make Baltimore such a wonderful place to be. The community itself has a beautiful, welcoming spirit.
With my daughter having the opportunity to walk to school and I got the opportunity to walk with her, is really a bonding moment.
You open the doors to your school and everyone really has true input. It really pushes the school to the next level.
As a community, we are going to work together so that our students' needs are met entirely.
I have no doubt that there are stories just like this one in your cities, and I encourage you, if you are not already, to seek them out and to tell them. Now, the story that you just saw, it incorporated a lot about the family's neighborhood as well. And that's because when we spoke to families in Baltimore, they told us they didn't just need help figuring out where to send their kids to school, they actually also needed help at choosing a neighborhood. Schools are just one factor in families' decisions of where to live. There are actually many other common factors when they are thinking about making a move, and we now know what those are. Families need larger homes because more children equals more bedrooms. They are looking for affordability because kids are expensive. They need green space because we want those children out of our hair and burning off that energy outside. They are looking for walkability because if any of you have ever had to wrestle with a car seat, you know it's not something you want to do every time you need to run an errand. And they're looking for kids in the neighborhood. They want their kids to have playmates, and they want those playmates to be nearby. Perhaps the coolest thing about these criteria is that we can quantify every single one of them with data. We can look at property tax records to compare the home sizes in our neighborhoods. We can use real estate data to compare the home sale prices. We can also use property tax records to look at lot size, figure out where there's yards. We can use GIS to determine neighborhoods' proximity to parks. We can consult our friends at WalkScore to look at walkability, and we can use census data to determine the percent of children in a neighborhood. Once we had this criteria, at Live Baltimore, we went through the process of scoring all 278, yes, there's 278 neighborhoods in Baltimore, all 278 neighborhoods in Baltimore. And what we found is that there were more than 40 that met families' needs, but that we just weren't showing to them. Now, with targeted marketing efforts to promote these neighborhoods, we're working to build new migration patterns that we believe will be self-perpetuating. You can use similar data when you go home to evaluate your own neighborhoods and downtowns, and I bet some of you will be pleasantly surprised at how appealing your areas are to families with children. Finally, of the neighborhood criteria that I just mentioned, there was one that stood out as really among the most important to families, and it was kind of surprising to us. It was the last one. It was kids in the neighborhood. We can visualize what kids in the neighborhood look like, and to use a seasonal example, lots of kids in the neighborhood. Not so many kids in the neighborhood. Unfortunately, many areas of our city, they don't have a lot of kids. And it's here that support for families becomes critically important. Now, support in this context isn't the kind of support for family success that you might typically think about. It's support to help families build social capital, because we know that for families to thrive in cities, they have to be connected. I offered that there are all kinds of ways to build social capital among families, and here's just a few that we're trying here in Baltimore. We are organizing events and playdates at both adult and kid-friendly locations like breweries. This is Peabody Heights Brewery. I would invite you to go check it out. They actually have a kids' night every Wednesday, so if you don't like the little people, avoid it on Wednesday. We worked with the local radio station to create a concert series for kids, but with music that adults like. This was a fish concert targeted at children. It was located in our downtown, and it attracted 800 families and their kids. We're creating opportunities for families to come together around volunteer opportunities, especially when these are related to a school. This is a crosswalk project that was actually just completed about 2 weeks ago, and I am so proud of this work. There's actually 2 in our city now. But young families with babies and toddlers, they came together and they envisioned this, and with our help, we made it a reality. We're also not doing it all ourselves. I want to mention that even if you aren't just organizing events yourself for families with kids, there's likely lots of organizations already doing this in your city. They may be hard to find. They may be targeted either hyper-locally or also to residents with kids of a very specific age. And even if you can't join them, it's important to know about them and to share them with the families in your city. So I'm going to close today with a short video that I'm happy to report depicts family life in downtown Baltimore now.
All right, let's go to school.
I was walking my kids to school, and when we became quite friendly with some of the other neighbors, we thought, hey, wouldn't it be great to share that duty?
You know, it all kind of evolved organically, and Ridgely's were the furthest away from the school. And so when we discovered that our kids could bike that far, you know, it was nice for us to be able to do that. And then along the way, discovered that we would meet up with the scooter gang from Otterbein. And then along the way, discovered that we would meet up with the kids from Sharp and other kids sort of filtering through the neighborhood.
It's a nice sense of family. You know, you're walking with your friends.
I think people are really excited to see families who are in the city and doing it and biking and walking to school.
It's just a great community, and a lot of people really appreciate the fact that we've done it on a regular basis, that we're going a little bit farther than most folks would.
I think my kids are growing up with a lot more self-awareness. It's teaching them how to navigate the world around them.
It feels like a small town within a big city. And for us, the school, Federal Hill Prep, sort of sits at the center of all of that.
Thank you. It's beautiful footage of downtown, but don't ride in the streets, kids. So I hope I've left you feeling inspired about families in downtown Baltimore, and also about how you can use schools, space, and support in your own cities to retain more families with children. Thank you.